The next stop is On the Radar Radio.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, baby. On the Radar Radio. Yo, special guest in the building. I'm so excited today to welcome the one, the only Vic Mensa to the show. How are you today, my brother?
Blessed, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Blessed to have you here. We just dropped the cover art for the album, correct?
Word.
You excited? How we feeling?
Super excited, man. You know what I mean? Been working on it a long time. The cover particularly is like my favorite album cover I've ever made. So.
You didn't paint this yourself, right? Because I gotta ask though.
I did everything.
I gotta ask just to be sure.
No, I didn't. The artist is named Teron Cooper Soros. He's a Chicago artist. Okay. Super cold. You know, like quickly rise in the ranks of the fine art space. I've been doing a lot of things in that world, so I wanted to reflect that by really creating a high-level album cover that could live on the walls of the MoMA, you know,
right.
Fucking an art museum, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you say in the post, like, you're inspired by the Book of the Dead and the Legend of Osiris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what from that inspired this cover?
I got you, yeah. My big homie, rest in peace, my young guy, Jordan Davis, shout out to my boy, Suavell. He's locked up. Been locked up since the 90s. Super ill, poet, MC, just like brilliant dude. He put me on this Egyptian Book of the Dead. I had read Tupac talk about it, actually. Tupac has cited it as one of his favorite books, but it wasn't until Suavell really introduced me to it over the phone that I really went and dived in, you know? And in that, I was studying it, and I came across the Legend of Osiris. So Osiris is the Egyptian god of the dead. And his story is basically that there was a party held by his brother, and there was this sarcophagus there, or it looked like a box or something, and the party trick was everybody's getting in the box to see if it fits. When Osiris got in the box, they tricked him, closed it on him, and he discovered that it was a sarcophagus built for him. So he was lured into his own sarcophagus by his detractors, conspirators, whatever it is, and then they ripped him to pieces, ripped his body apart to pieces, killed him, spread the pieces of his body all across the world or whatever realm they lived in, and then his wife, Isis, sewed the pieces of his body back together, and he was, you know, born anew, and now he was the god of the afterworld. And he was 28 when that happened. So I was just drawing a lot of parallels. When I read that he was 28, I was like, yo, I need to use this. You know what I mean? I'm 28. Like, I got to use this legend in this album, you know? And I was just drawing a parallel from that to, you know, my time in the industry and, you know, being lured into self-damaging circumstances, whether it be by just the nature of the game, by fame, money, mental health things, etc., you know, taunting, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I used it, man. I just found a dope way to, like, represent that story, not only in the album, but in the artwork. So when you look at it, you'll see that, like, the pieces of my body are ripped off, like my arms are ripped off, and they're being sewed back together by these doves.
Right. That's tight, bro.
You know,
I like that.
yeah.
I see the parallels because, like, I told you, like, I sat there for 2 Angie Martinez interviews, right? And I kind of, it's funny because I feel like I've been on this journey with you through your career because of being there and you being I saw, like, you know, you talking about the low moments in your life and, like, the first one, and then you kind of putting yourself back together in the second one, and then now to the point where it's like you're showing yourself back at 28, right? Does it feel like you're sewn back together right now? Do you feel whole again? Or?
I do. I definitely do. You know what I mean? And I think the album really follows that process in a lot of ways. You know, of me just, like, fine-tuning my experience as a human being. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm an artist. I make rap music, but first and foremost, I'm a human being. And so the music is just a representation of that.
Right.
So wherever I'm at as a person, as a man, it's going to be where the music is at, where the public image and the perception it all has to follow where I'm at as a person.
Yeah.
So in the process of this album, I'm really just coming back to form, like returning to form. Even the beginning of the album, it discusses a lot. Moving back to Chicago, I was in LA for a long time. Just re-grounded myself in the things that are important to me. You know what I mean? Changing my lifestyle, cutting out a lot of shit that wasn't helping me to progress, you know? But things that are the nature of the game, being in this game, from, you know, the drugs to all the sex and all the violence and all the shit that this music is built off of, you know? But I had to come to realize, man, that those things aren't serving me as a human being. They're not helping me to see myself with longevity. So me sewing myself back together is like just completely refocusing, like pivoting away from so many of those things to focus on what's important to me.
I like that for you. I like when, you know, you talked about going back to Chicago, right? Like I even saw you did this thing where to help out the homeless, you like slept underneath I forgot where it was.
Underneath the viaduct.
Yeah. And I think it's cool how it's kind of like, you know, we seen you go from like those points in the industry where you were so deeply embedded in music and everything that you were just talking about, to them being like going back to Chicago and seeing like the more grounded side of who Vic Mensa is and doing things like that and helping out the homeless and so on and so forth too.
Word.
And with moving back to Chicago, what was like some of the main things that you felt helped grounded you when you came back?
I think the people, primarily, you know.
Okay.
It's just different to be around people that know you for a season than it is to be around people that know you through the seasons, you know? Like a lot of the people I spent most of my time with in LA, I love them, some of my dearest friends, but most of them I met through work, and a lot of times they worked for me, you know? And it could be hard to get real honest guidance, you know?
Yeah.
When there's a lot of people on the payroll, or everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty strange phenomenon, because it works out like that as an artist, to where you want to work with your friends, you know? That's something that I think we all strive for, is to bring your people up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And keep your team the same. But at times it can start to be strange when like all your friends depend on you to pay their rent, you know? And how can you really expect like people to give you hard truths in that situation?
Yeah.
It could be difficult, you know, because you might end up with a lot of yes men, you know, because everybody's just trying to keep a spot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Just keep the money flowing.
you know what I mean? And that's no diss or no slight, but I think that's like a common thing I hear amongst artists, is like not really knowing who to trust or who's genuine. And so going to Chicago for me helped me to become grounded in the people that really know me, like the people that have really known me since I was a kid, people that know me before this music thing was what it is. Like, I've been doing music and rapping since I was a teenager, but there's a difference to, you know, having met and established a relationship then at age 16, when this shit was just a possibility, to, you know, building a relationship in the midst of it being how we all make a living. You know what I mean? So being in Chicago, it's done that for me in a lot of ways.
That's beautiful. You said like you've been getting more into like the fine art space, obviously with this album cover too. And I kind of love this because it's ironic, because I just had Cowboy here last night, and Cowboy was telling me about how he's into it in a different way. He paints with acrylics now, but I
dope.
think fans don't always know these other sides of you. Like a lot of fans probably off the rip, maybe, I mean, now they know because we're talking about it and, you know, the album coming out, whatever, but they might not know that like fine art is something that Vic Mensa is really into. So within the fine art space, like how are you, I guess, maneuvering in that, or how, like what kind of space does that occupy in your career?
I think to start with, I've just been a patron of the arts, you know, like an early supporter of some of my guys that have ascended into making a life in, fine art and painting and just supporting their practice, whether it's like helping them get out to Europe, and helping them with their rent and supplies and things like that, or purchasing work or putting people in different positions. I think it kind of escalated to a point where I curated an art show, a group show at a high-level gallery in Chicago in last year. So I guess 2022. It's called Skin and Masks. It was like a super dope show with people from all across the planet, like artists from Chicago, New York, LA, Ghana, London, South Africa, Mexico, eventually. And that was probably my first real foray into the fine art, was curating like at a high level gallery.
That's fire. You mentioned Ghana. I saw obviously the Black Star Festival happen. Congratulations. That
Thank you,
looked
bro.
incredible. For you, I know that was a full circle moment because I saw that you had a family member who was with you over there. So what was like what was that moment like? And explain to the people who might not understand fully like the roots that you have in Ghana with the music as well too.
Yeah, my father's from Ghana, so his entire side of the family, like one half of my family lives in Ghana. He's the only one that ever came to America.
Wow.
And so I grew up going to Ghana, and more recently though, I started going on my own and just, building that relationship with the people and the youth in my own way, without the family, out a little further from the capital where things are happening in Accra. So I started building in Accra just to tap back in, man. And I quickly realized that there was a need to come back and do something, to bring the artists there.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense. It's like the people of Ghana and Africa at large, they love the music. Like they're tapped in, they're on the phone, they're watching On the Radar freestyles, like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Nah,
like,
ain't no funny shit. Like I think like some months, depending on the month, like it'll be like America, UK, Canada, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, in terms of who watches On the Radar.
I'm saying they're tapped in. They're tapped into all pieces and parts of this culture. Like from what's like mainstream to underground in general, like they're tapped in. And I realized that there's just a massive need to do something to bring the artists to connect with them, because, they're tapped in, but we often don't have any way of really communicating with them. I feel like as an artist or even as a media platform, we hold a conversation with the people that follow what we do.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm a lyricist, so my lyrics are conversational. It's like if you're listening to my music on repeat, you're basically speaking to me. I'm telling you what I believe. For you, your taste is almost a conversation. You know what I mean? So people are listening to you and they're saying, oh, well, he thinks that this artist is dope. Like, this is a recommendation. I should check this person out. You know what I mean? I should dive into this. But we often don't have ways of like really fostering that conversation and that relationship with the fans in Africa, because we as artists don't go there. You know what I mean? Like, those artists don't get over here that often.
Because of visas and things.
There's
like
a lot
that.
of things in the way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I was there, I was just realizing like, man, there are a lot of things in the way, but none of those are too great for me to overcome with intention,
Yeah.
I know it's the right thing to do, and somebody's gonna do it to start to bring the Black artists to Africa. And so then that's just, when we kicked into gear, man. And Chance came to visit me in Ghana, got him situated with the visas. A lot of our friends came after, and I told him this idea, and the rest is history. It really came together. The Black Star Line Festival, it happened about a year later. So that was January 6th of this year in Ghana for the first time. 52,000 people, free festival for the people. A lot of dope artists from here, from there, just like ill mixture. And now we're working on it in Jamaica.
Fire. So you're going to bring the Black Star Festival to Jamaica.
Yeah, we're working on it in Kingston right now.
That's dope. Yeah, you don't, like, I think when you're coming up, when you're young, you don't really realize how much the rest of the world pays attention to what we do here. Like, I think I've been having artists from Ghana, Nigeria, and Africa on my show for a while, but like, I didn't realize it until like I was at the BET Awards this year, and we were doing our freestyles over there, and like this one artist who was nominated for like Best New International Artist, he came up to me, he's like, "Oh, I see a lot of." He was from Ghana. He's like,
Who was
"I see
it? Is it Black Sharif?
No, it wasn't Black Sharif. We're working on Black Sharif. Find bro's name for me, Cal, because I know it, but I'm blanking. But he came to me and he was like, I see a lot of, huh? Who was it? Kodo? Komodo. He was nominated for Best New International Artist at the BET Awards. But he came up to me and he's like, "Oh, I see a lot of artists from Ghana coming on this platform because I've had everything from like Afro beats to the drill artists that they have over there."
Yeah, those are my guys.
Like the Asakaa boys, like
I was one of the first people to like plug the Asakaa boys and shit. I actually had them come and perform the festival. It was one of my favorite moments. I remember when that first happened. When I first saw it online, somebody sent it to me because they were like, "Man, you're from Ghana. You should see this." And like I was just blown away, you know, and just like started plugging it and promoting it. And they were always really appreciative of that because like those bridges sometimes don't get crossed. You know what I mean? Like people don't, and it's starting to get crossed more.
Definitely a little bit.
But you know, so you brought them on here and you see what, you know, they love.
I had Cal come up. Cal Banger came over.
He's hard.
He's tough. The rest of them had like visa issues, I think. But it was crazy because I didn't even know that they had like sold out a show at Terminal 5, I guess like a year ago or a year and a half ago, something like that. So when my man GQ was telling me, I was like, "Oh, they're selling out shows in America. We need to be a part of this." You know what I'm saying? We need to try to bridge that gap and help try to get them more exposure over here. Because, like, they love our shit over here. Like, he telling me all the drill artists from New York that he's listening to. I'm like, this is crazy. And then I was watching their videos, and obviously they they blew up during the pandemic.
Right.
So I think that it's really cool kind of seeing that synergy from Ghana to America and how you were able to bring that over there. And even the family aspect of it, I feel like that's what made it like that much more.
That was the illest part for me. I ain't gonna lie. That was like the moment for me when I brought my uncle on stage because my uncle, his name is Chief Kofi Sami, and he's like a legendary musician in Ghana. You know. So do you know about Fela Kuti?
Of course, yeah.
So Fela and my uncle were close friends and contemporaries, and so the story goes that when Fela was on the run from the Nigerian government, he came to stay in Ghana. My uncle brought him, and
That's funny.
they stayed at my grandma's house. And my dad said he never seen so much weed smoked, you know what I mean, at one time. Because, Fela actually, he would be on the run about the weed, now that I think of it. But, you know, my uncle, he was a legendary musician, and I like to say he's a blues musician in a way. Like, his music is called high life music.
Yeah, I know high life.
And, you know, some artists like Abel Taylor have started to really, strangely in old age, spread high life sound here. But, you know, most of those artists, similar to the blues musicians in America, like they had their time and were exploited. And by the time they get old, it's like they don't have no money. You know what I mean? Everything's been sucked dry. And so my uncle hasn't had the easiest time, you know, from being like a bona fide superstar, you know, to like being back in the village and just like medical things and house falling apart and, you know, just being in poverty, you know what I mean? And so like being able to bring him on stage, you know what I mean, and like
Give him his flowers.
And really honor him, and the crowd loved him too. You know what I mean? It's like he's old, so he speaks like this, and it's hard to understand him. You know what I mean? But like he was speaking, and it just resonated with the crowd for real. And I think it clearly resonated globally to even like show you like how deep the roots are, you know, over there. And that was my crowning moment. That and the Asakaa boys, honestly, that was the moment when I was like, wow, this thing that I like dreamt of and imagined has come to be a real thing. When the Asakaa boys are on stage and, they perform in all Ashanti tribal war gear. So like these long, like smocks with like these medallions and leather patches on them, faces painted in white. and then the beat drops and it's a drill beat and it's 50,000 people going nuts. And then Jeremiah gets on stage next. You know what I mean? It was like, oh man, now this thing came together.
But it's even cooler when it's even more of a full circle when you just think about how like Chicago's impact with drill music, and then it's like Ghana, right? Because like I think Cal and I briefly spoke about Chicago and New York's impact on the Asakaa boys, and kind of like that also kind of brings it back full circle for you in another way. It brings it back to Chicago, which I love for you.
No, they love Chicago. Like globally, Chicago has a huge footprint. It's a lot of influence and has inspired so many movements. You in the drill scene in Ghana, I'm always taken aback by that because it's like here you have drill music from Chicago that represents the reality of the trenches, like the most dangerous, violent, like impoverished experience.
Yeah.
And then it inspires the guys in the UK who mix it with grime, which is their, traditional like street music. They make UK drill, and UK drill comes and inspires New York drill in a way, UK and Chicago.
Yeah.
And New York makes their whole own
Subgenre
drill sound.
Because like Brooklyn got more UK, and then the Bronx and Harlem got more Chicago in it.
New York makes their whole own drill sound that actually goes more global than almost any drill before it. I mean, in a way, because Pop Smoke is just super, super influential globally. I'm not going to say that because obviously Keith is super influential globally. But they made a new thing. It bounced from Chicago to the UK to New York. And then a drill music scene in Ghana? You know what I mean? Like,
crazy.
It's so crazy. And they're rapping in Twi, like in their native language. And it's also interesting because a lot of the subject matter too is just like really related to the struggles of being in the streets out there, which are just different because it's not as violent by any means. Ghana is a very peaceful place. You know what I mean? There's not much murder, like violent crime and things.
I don't know
like
what they're saying. So you're kind of filling me in on like the
for real,
on like the context of their music.
That
and
first
shit.
joint, the one that I first posted, the Yebasore, that's the really like the coined song that coined that sound. That basically means we will rise. You know, it's not like it's meaningful, it's powerful, but it's not like murder talk. You know what I mean? It's not killing each other. It's like we will rise because Ghanaians don't really kill each other. It's not a thing like that.
Interesting. Did not know that.
It's not a thing. Like they have a joke that they say even the armed robbers in Ghana, they'll pull the gun, but they don't want to shoot you because they can't imagine like shooting another Ghanaian.
One of their own people.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Which is something we need, I think that's something that has been lost in many ways in our culture is just like a real love and appreciation for each other, to treat each other like family. Being inside of this American capitalist system has poisoned and polluted our minds in many ways that we think we all have to go it alone and everybody else is our enemy. But culturally, deep inside us, that's not what we really believe. That's not where we really come from. You know what I mean? We come from collective, community-based culture where everybody raises the child. And so I'm inspired by the Ghanaian drill because they're able to take the energy that we love from a Chicago drill and inject some different ideas into it.
Yeah, that's fire. Kind of taking it back to Chicago for one more thing, bro. The house music stuff that you've been doing. I've been watching your DJ sets.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie.
That's a Chicago.
If people don't know, house music has deep roots in Chicago. For if people don't already understand, but I love seeing you venture into that space because I was watching some of the videos, some of the mixes you was doing on your Twitter. Even with the music that you have been putting out, you've been doing some house mixes to it, like with Eastside Girl and whatnot. So I was like, man, like one thing I want to see in this next year, I want to see you do like a set, like a house music set at like one of these like EDM festivals or house festivals, whatever you want to call it. Like I need to see a Vic Mensa set.
Yeah, we
at
could
one
do
of these
that.
joints.
We could
I don't know if
definitely
you.
do that.
I don't know if you've been planning. If you feel like you're ready for something like
I'm
that.
ready for that. I be spending a lot, man. You know what I mean? Like, I just go off feeling, you know? And I think I'm a good DJ because I have great taste. Some of the mechanics, I'm working on them.
What do you be struggling with?
I don't be struggling with nothing. It's just that I be doing everything really live, like on the fly, like really creative. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm doing mashups and like I'll mix a Young Thug acapella with Prince, I Want to Be Your Lover instrumental.
I'm fucking
you know
with
what I mean?
that.
And
Yeah,
it'll just,
I like that.
and people would be like, did you have this recorded already? I'd be like, no, I just came up with this right now. So it's like, I'd be so ambitious with it. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of DJs, you watch people like turning knobs and it's like, what are you really doing? Like, is anything happening right now? Did you already record this set in the past and you're just turning a knob? You know, I don't do all that preparation.
Kind of feels like freestyling, like
I'm
as
freestyling.
as a rapper too.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm freestyling. When I'm DJing, I be straight freestyling. You know what I mean? So sometimes that shit works. Sometimes I got to get into the next one quickly. You know what I mean? Because I'm freestyling.
Sometimes it's not hidden. I remember I forgot what my man's back in the day mixed it with, but he had like the Baby Shark song and he mixed it with some hip hop shit. I was like, bro, shout out my boy Nick. I was like, bro, I don't know if this really hidden how you think it's hidden. But it was funny. But it's like shit like that. It's like how you mix in Prince with Thug. Like I'm sure that worked out well.
That joke
like,
works out.
Most
but
of the time,
then sometimes
it might.
I do some that are really hilarious though. People do think it's funny. Like I got one that I do where it's the Isley Brothers' Voyage to Atlantis.
Okay.
Like, pew, pew, da, and then it's Back in Blood. So I got my own fight on these.
I'm jacking that though. That's tight.
Over the Isley
I gotta
Brothers.
check that one out.
That one is nasty, but it always makes people laugh though.
Is that one out? Can I watch that somewhere?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
you just be doing it sometimes?
I
Okay.
be doing them. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I'm gonna make a mix since we had this conversation where I record and I'm actually like playing all the mashups that I do.
I feel like you got to, bro. I feel like that's something
Yeah.
that people would actually tune into.
Yeah.
Especially because like I feel like house is such a popular genre that like as of right now, like there's so many house, especially in New York, there's so many different house parties. That's like I feel like that's perfect for you.
I gotta pop up to some of those. You gotta let me know.
I got you, bro. But we're also celebrating 6 years of the autobiography, right? 6 or 7.
I think 6.
Is it 6? I think it's 6. I know 6
It's
years.
6. It's
6
6.
years, which
Yeah.
is kind of crazy because like this new project, the way that we've been talking about it, it's kind of like I want to say it's like a sequel to that autobiography, but I feel like the autobiography was like everything that happened to you up until that point, right?
Mhm.
And then this is kind of like since then,
In a
everything
way,
that's happened to
yeah,
you.
it's pretty present. But you know what? One of my guys told me that it did remind him a lot of the autobiography, just in the way of like narration and skits and orchestration and things tying it
Yeah.
together. You know what I mean? And even like just like the attention to the lyricism and storytelling and the precision. In a lot of ways, it is almost like follow up to that. It's different, but it's like holds a lot of similarity to that project.
I was gonna say, were you thinking about that a lot when you were making this? Like, damn, it's kind of like a autobiography of like the last couple years of my life now.
I think my music is usually pretty autobiographical.
kinda, yeah.
You know what I mean? I tend to like try to draw on what's happening in real life, but I was thinking about just like my process of making the autobiography and like how much attention to detail,
Yeah.
I put into it. And so this album, in that same way, like, and just like having some of those records that are like heavy, powerful songs. You know what I mean? I remember when I made Wings with Pharrell, like being in the studio and came in the lab that day and like I was on when I was really upset because I had just, been on the phone with somebody who was basically finessing me, back in Chicago. And it was like some money that I had fronted for my music video that we didn't end up shooting. And then when I told the dude we couldn't shoot it, he was like, oh, well, the money's disappeared. You know what I mean? We already spent it to prepare, you know what I mean? And it's like 15 bands,
Damn.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm tweaking on the phone. I'm like, man, I definitely threatened his life quite a few times.
The old Vic.
And I was definitely
The old Vic.
entirely serious. And so I came into the studio, and I'm pissed. And, you know, Pharrell, he just kind of like gave me some game, you know? And he was like, you are actually lucky in this situation. And he said, you're lucky for 3 reasons. First of all, you don't have to be the person that looks in the mirror and knows that they both face steel from those that they call brother, you know? You're lucky also because losing $15,000 is not going to tank you. Like, that might really damage somebody else's life plans, you know? And you're lucky in the third way because you have the ability to let this shit go and move on. And that shit was so ill to me, you know? So I went in the studio, I made this song, Wings. And it was just like, I was letting out so much shit. It was just like I locked the door, I'm just pacing back and forth, like I'm like bawling, crying, just because there's so much emotion in the record. And I mention that because like some songs on this album, I feel like I struck that same emotional chord, you know what I mean? Like tapped into that same well, you know? So I was thinking about the autobiography in that way.
I think, like, you know, when you say a lot of your stuff is autobiographical, like, I even think about, like, the freestyles, because I was watching the Sway one earlier, and I had saw you quote tweeted somebody who quoted the lyrics of the freestyle, because obviously you talked about how you had dissed people in your past, but the one thing that you said about it in the quotes, he's like, the truth will set you free. And I believe that's the tweet that I saw.
That's hard.
Or somebody tweeted that, but I think that that's like, that's the point that we're at with this project too.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're living in all the truths and all the mistakes that you have made in your past, but also all the great things that you've done in your past, and kind of just fully accepting of like Vic.
And putting them all together, you know. And the freestyles are very autobiographical. Like I approach them that way. In a lot of ways, like that Sway freestyle, I feel like is a real representation of this album too, you know. Yeah. And it's a part of the album in my mind, you know what I mean? Because it's many of the same things I'm addressing in the songs and in the verses and the things I've learned. That's what the music is about, you know what I mean? So when I'm talking about that, like, what was the bar? What I said?
I think I wrote
super shit. Like, this is Drake. That was a big
said,
mistake. But when you raised in the cage,
yeah.
I know it's MMA. I diss Yachty, diss Act, diss Triple X. Disrespect, made the fans disinvest. I lost M's like a Dow Jones regression, but every L taught me an invaluable lesson. I'm back now with intention. Help make Musa a free man. He was a child in detention. Gang in the field trying to drill like Yoshimitsu from Tekken. He's spinning around with a weapon. Did you catch that part? You ever play Tekken?
I had played Tekken, but I didn't catch that part. That's tough.
You don't even remember Yoshimitsu, how he used to spin like that?
You excited for the new Tekken? On a side note?
I don't even play video games, man.
Okay,
it's been, I don't play the game, man. It's been mad years.
But you knew about the character. That's okay.
Back in, you know.
That was good, though. I respect that.
2004.
I respect that. That was good. I ain't gonna lie.
Back in 2004, I used to get busy with the video games. But yeah, you know, what I'm saying in there is that through that process, you know, bumping my head and beefing with this person, beefing with that person, I learned so many things. You know, I would say maybe the primary lesson that I've learned is that your delivery is often more important even than your message. And your message can be lost in your delivery. So as I reflect on some of those squabbles and beefs and controversies, most oftentimes my intention was to stand for something righteous. Yeah. You know, if you look back and you see each one, most oftentimes my intention was to stand for something righteous, but oftentimes my methodology, the way I went about it, was so brash and offensive that nobody even knew what my point was. You know what I mean? Because people weren't disputing my point. They were disputing the way that I approached it and the way that I said it, to where my message was completely buried. You know what I mean? And as a communicator, that's antithetical to the purpose. That defeats the mission. Yeah. If your mission is buried by your phrasing, you know what I mean? By the way you approach what you're saying, man. It's like a valuable lesson. And I don't know if I would have ever gotten that lesson had it not been for learning that the hard way. Another lesson I put in that same bar really is something I learned through studying the Bible. I never used to be into the Bible at all. I was very anti-religious. But in recent years, man, I've like just taken the value of that, of the Quran, and the Bible says, "Judge not lest ye be judged, condemn not lest ye be condemned." In Islam, we say that the Prophet Isa, which is Jesus, says, "Do not judge the actions of others or the flaws of others as if you are a Lord." That's a line I actually use in the album, because that's something I also had to come to understand. It's like nobody's perfect. Judgment is reserved for God. So just because somebody's doing something bogus doesn't mean that it's my responsibility to call it out,
Right, yeah,
to
yeah.
bring attention to it. Like, that's between them and God, ultimately. But I didn't have that perspective, So I think gaining that perspective has been super valuable for me, and just giving me a tool by which to like really understand how to interface with that, because that's everywhere around us, man. We all make mistakes, and there's a lot of people obviously making a living out of being flagrant. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whether it's on record or on air or in the government, you know what I'm saying? Like, making an entire campaign, career, and lifestyle out of like doing wrong. But I learned you can stand for something without having to stand against someone. That's what I really learned.
I like that.
You know what I mean? I could be on my principles. I'm not going to change in that way. I'm not going to stop being somebody that fights for what's right. But instead of making it about the individual, I would rather focus on the structures.
I like that. So we're in New York right now because you and Chance got the 10-year Acid Rap Show.
Word.
I know there's a few more coming up. Not in New York, but are you, as much as this is of course like a celebration of acid rap, are you also taking in your flowers at these shows? Because I feel like this is just a celebration of everything that y'all have achieved in y'all careers.
Yeah,
at the same time,
100%,
too.
man. There's been one show already. That was in Chicago.
Yep.
At the United Center.
Then we're doing New
And
York.
so we did Cocoa Butter Kisses at that show. At this one, I'm gonna be doing a set, playing the internet tape. But even, when we did the Cocoa Butter Kisses joint last time, the whole thing was surreal. Like, there's a moment in my recap video where I'm just looking up and like the look on my face is like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Because it's like thinking about this music that came from times when I was sleeping on the couch, that song in particular. Like, couch was about this big, you know what I mean? Like, I was sleeping on my manager's couch, living there at the time, and Chance came in and he had this beat and a hook and his verse. It was a different beat than the final Cocoa Butter Kisses. That was the first day I ever ate mushrooms. So I ate a mushroom, and like, I went into the room and I'm just recording myself in my boy's bedroom on like a janky Focusrite compressor, and like, then the mushrooms start kicking in like after like one bar, and I was like, yo, I just start snapping, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the next thing I look up, and it's just like a classic, legendary verse. And thinking about going from that time, sleeping on that couch, and then a song that was made in that environment to then be performed for I don't know how many thousands of people that's got to be in fucking stadium. And it was surreal, and it was just like an amazing moment.
That's fine, man. I like that for you. Also, before we get up out of here, right? So the album Victor is coming 9/15. The one thing I gotta say is I love you. I love how you got into your dance bag and the East Side Girl shit.
Word, man. Shout out
I was
to my
watching the
boy.
rehearsal videos that you posted. You like, yeah, they got me dancing and shit now. I was like, nah. I'm like, Vic in a different type of bag. Like, I was not prepared for that, but I was fucking with it.
Shout out to my boy Ian Eastwood. He choreographed that, man. You know what I mean? Like, I told motherfuckers, I'm half white, but I can still dance, man.
Well, Victor's out 9/15, man. Congratulations on everything. Congratulations on all the success. I can't wait to hear what this album is like. Before we go, though, my photographer, Calvin, is a fucking enormous Vic Mensa fan.
Shout out to Calvin,
And
man.
he sometimes does this segment called Cal's Question, so he has a question for you today, which
I
I'm
bet.
partially nervous for.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Cal's Question. Vic, he's right. I actually have been a fan for a minute, but my question for you today actually is, Vic, you've been in the game for a minute. You know, always putting on for Chicago and your people. One of the things I've always respected about you is how open you've been with the things you struggle with and your mental health. Always been an advocate for mental health. You know, never been afraid to speak your truth and to speak about what's going on in your life. One song that always like really stuck with me about that is either "There's a Lot Going On," the title track off the album, or songs like "Wings" that we were talking about earlier today. So my question for you today is, what's some advice that you have for either your fans that struggle to talk about their mental health, or for artists that are too afraid to speak about it through their music?
Hey, I think first of all, Calvin, I just want to say I appreciate you for listening to those songs, man. Like, that means a lot to me. Like, those songs are super, super personal to me. And as I was speaking about Wings and how that came about, There's a Lot Going On was a very similar song in that, like, you know, it just poured out of me, and it was like a super emotional experience. And I think I found that when you make those kind of records, that they do that for the person listening to them too. So those songs were so meaningful for me and helped me with my mental health in a way to make them, because it was a release, it was a catharsis. And when you feel that while you're making it, the person listening to it can relate, you know, and if they're going through something parallel, because we all go through similar things.
Absolutely.
It can serve as a solace for them, some comfort, you know, feel like somebody else understands some of what I'm going through, you know. And so for the second part of your question, to artists, I would say that's perhaps like the biggest value in doing it, is that it can give you a way to really connect to the people listening to your music in a deeper vein than if you play it safe. I think as far as any mental health advice or, you know, just consultation I could give to a fan or someone listening, has to obviously be what has worked for me, because I'm not a mental health professional and I can't tell nobody what they're supposed to do. But for me, meditation, man, meditation has been like really valuable. You know what I'm saying? Far more so than medication. And that's not for everybody, but for me, I went on every antidepressant medication through high school, from Wellbutrin to Effexor, Lexapro, and Zoloft, and Prozac, you know, even old school joints, new school joints. Like, I probably did about 10 to 15 medicines since I was 15 years old, over about a 15-year period. And I got about a year of like real efficacy from it, which is a dismal efficacy rate. And I was always into meditation, but when I decided to really start looking to the answers for the struggles I was dealing with in my mental health, to start looking for those answers internally as opposed to externally, things started to change. You know what I mean? When I realized that the more work I put into it, the better it got, you know? Like, it could feel like a sort of work going to psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and, you know, trying medications and, you know, getting off medications and all of those things. But, like, it's a different kind of work when you say, I'm going to dedicate, you know, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day, an hour a day to, like, really trying to train my mind. And it's not some amorphous, like, weird space shit, you know what I mean? People can misunderstand meditation as. It's like, it's really scientific. It's like the same things that those medications, the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SNRIs, serotonin, norepinephrine, you know, those are the same chemicals that meditation releases into your body. So when you're meditating, people who have their chemicals scanned afterwards, like leaving meditation, you will have maybe 30%, 50% more serotonin in your body. And if you make that a habit, a practice, a daily practice, I've never seen it not help someone. I've seen a lot of people be like, I'm not down to try it because I don't think it'll help me. But somebody that meditated daily, intentionally, for real, for a month, I've never seen it not be impactful to them. So that's the thing I would say from my experience.
Great answer. Good question, Cal. Well, Victor out 9:15.
Yes,
Congratulations again on
sir.
everything.
Hey, appreciate you, Gary.
Before we get up out here, freestyle now by the time y'all see this, so go check that out. Go run that up. Let the people know where they can follow you at. Anything else you want to let the fans know? Now's the time to do it. This camera on the right here.
Vic Mensa on Instagram, Twitter, across all platforms. I guess the Barclays might have already happened by the time we did this.
Because tomorrow.
But the LA show will still be probably about to happen.
Yep, because that's in October, right?
Yeah, no, that's in September 21st. You know what I mean? So Acid Rap Live featuring the internet, September 21st in LA at the Forum. And Victor album, 9:15. It is.
There you go. So go check all that out. Go run up that freestyle. Make sure you go follow him. Go show him some love. Go show him some support. Love is free. Support is free. But y'all already knew that. Till next time. Big Mensa on the radar. We out. Pow. I got love.